We continue our coverage of breaking news from Madison this morning, where the state assembly passed the budget bill early this morning, but not without controversy. Here's how it happened.
Shall the bill be passed? All in favor will vote aye. All opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There are 51 ayes, 17 nays. The bill is passed.
So what happened? To help sort it all out, political science professor Charley Jacobs from St. Norbert College joins us on the phone this morning. Good morning, Charley.
Good morning.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, I haven't seen anything like it. I mean, it seems to have technically followed the rules of the Assembly, but of course there are going to be questions about the tactics used by the Republicans.
Okay, let's talk about the rules. What are the rules in this voting process?
Well, these are obviously atypical rules. It's something that the Republicans knew was available to them, but I would argue that most reporters and most members of the Assembly haven't seen it used in this particular way. It called for a call for the vote and then 15 seconds to come from the floor, and then they could open the vote. There's no requirement that they leave the vote open for any particular length of time, and so the short window that people had to vote appears to have been perfectly appropriate. The problem, of course, for Democrats is they feel as though they may not have had the opportunity to even cast their vote, especially after the more than 60 hours they spent debating the bill.
Yeah, it seemed to me from some of the Democrats we heard from this morning that they were surprised by that there was no precedent for stopping debate like this, and they were expecting to have their time to talk about it. Is this something that the Republicans must have discussed before it happened so that they knew how to do this?
I can't say with any certainty that they did discuss it, but it's likely. I mean, the rules that are established for any legislative institution are meant to make sure that there are proper procedures as well as there are vehicles by which they can move along the proceeding. And either party can utilize them, even if they're a rather arcane type of rule. So I am sure that what they did was research to make sure that what they were doing was perfectly appropriate, and because they had indulged the Democrats for this length of time, I'm sure that their caucus believed it was appropriate to move it across to a vote and move the business to the Senate.
Now, at one point, Charlie, we could hear them say, all in favor, say aye, all opposed, say nay, but you couldn't actually hear who was saying anything.
Yeah,
can you talk about that voice vote a little bit?
There seems to be some confusion about exactly how the votes were recorded. There also seems to be confusion from the Assembly clerk about whether or not he heard the appropriate number of seconds for the procedure to move to a vote at all. So that there at this moment seems to be some confusion about whether or not all of the rules were followed exactly the way they should. I would argue that the Republicans wouldn't let the vote move forward unless they knew they had the appropriate number of votes.
Could there be legal action?
There always could be legal action. They could challenge whether or not, especially if the Senate finally takes it up, whether or not bicameralism has actually happened. That is, both chambers of the state assembly actually did pass the bill, which would, of course, avoid the legislation altogether.
Okay.
But, of course, that's well down the road, and I'm sure that the Republicans, again, dotted their I's and crossed their T's to make sure that they had the appropriate number of votes.
So what happens next?
What happens next, apparently, is the waiting game with the Senate, whether or not they will come back and address the bill or whether or not the governor is going to negotiate any components of that bill. So I think most of us are going to have to wait just like those down in Madison are waiting.
Is there anything in your research that you found about these senators who have left the state, how long this can go on?
This can go on, apparently, as long as they have money in their checkbooks, because there's nothing that I am aware of that can compel these members to return. Absent a quorum, they're not going to be able to vote on the bill in the Senate.
This must be exciting for you to watch, Charlie, as a political science professor, and discussing it with your students.
Yeah, in fact, I can't get through most of the material in my classes because it's all the students want to talk about.
Yeah, what a learning process. Well, we really appreciate your perspective this morning. Charley Jacobs from St. Norbert College.